Punch it, dude. Punch that email.
I need the link.
Oh, John, send him the link.
That's why I asked 30 minutes ago, and you told me, don't do it yet.
We didn't have it.
Yeah, I know.
Welcome. Welcome, newcomers.
Nice banner.
Thanks. I'm obsessed with banners. This is going to be huge for me on election night that we can do
And
this.
that's every editor's worst nightmare, I guess, is on not having the access or not being an intermediary between the writer and the output.
All right. You've got this YouTube live link in our
Yeah,
private
got it. I'm
chat.
putting in now.
If you are joining us because you're a loyal YouTube subscriber and you just happen to be on YouTube when we went live, we're blasting off a surprise live stream here. We're going to do a live recording of our Sunday podcast. We're about to send an email out to some people. If you're just showing up and you've got questions or thoughts you want to drop in the comments about the election, you can do that. I'm going to be sharing some closing thoughts about this election and the craziness of what's going on. There's a ton to cover. We're going to bring in Will K back, one of our editors, to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on as well. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel like we should wait until the room fills up a little bit for us to actually do our official live intro. But those of you who are just popping into the YouTube live stream, feel free to drop a comment. Hello, William. Good to see you, Greg. Nice to see you. Yeah, we wanted to do something just to kick off our election coverage this week. We're going to blast out a newsletter to some of our thank you subscribers. And those of you obviously who pay close attention on our YouTube channel, you're already here, so we appreciate it. I just got the notification too from YouTube. That's really nice. That's a good feature.
All right. And we just sent that email to our thank you tier subscribers, letting them know that we are live on YouTube and are starting to record our Sunday podcast on this beautiful Sunday.
Yeah. All right. I have to do the actual Sunday podcast. So you guys will you'll watch how this goes. Cool. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Tangle Podcast, the place where we get views from across the political spectrum, some independent thinking, and a little bit of my take. I'm your host, Isaac Saul. We're ripping our first ever live podcast because it's election season and we didn't feel like we had enough work to do. I'm here with managing editor Ari Weitzman. Ari, how are you doing, man?
Pretty good. It is an unseasonably warm Halloween here in Vermont. Very spookily warm, but not going to complain about it. It's going to get cold fast. So I know that a lot of people will be listening to this on Sunday in November, but we're on the precipice of November here, October 31st, Halloween night. You have any plans?
I have no actual legit Halloween plans, except I'm going to hang out at home and pray for trick-or-treaters because we just moved in our old neighborhood. We had no trick-or-treaters and it was such a bummer. It actually legitimately bummed me out. Right now, FYI, Philadelphia is in the middle of one of the longest streaks it's ever had without rain. And it's just been unseasonably warm, which is a bummer. So I'm kind of living through that experience right now is everything's dry and hot and it doesn't feel like it should feel on Halloween. But Phoebe and I went and loaded up on candy because we heard a bunch of people trick or treat on our block. And if that's true, I'm going to be really pumped about it because Halloween is one of my favorite holidays for sure.
I'm definitely ornery about trick-or-treating happening too early in the day and about municipalities that schedule it and sometimes schedule it on days that aren't actually Halloween because they're worried about it being a school night or children are going to houses that are unfamiliar. I'm very old man shakes fist at cloud with that. Like kids need to go out and go to houses that are a little unfamiliar, learn who the mean people are in their neighborhoods, get out, eat too much candy, stay up too late, have a bad day at school the next day. It's part of the experience. But I won't say any of that. It's pointless.
So for those of you who are tuning in, you might notice smaller than usual audience for some of our live stream. We are testing this out because we have election night coming up, which is a little nerve wracking. We have a bunch of interviews and a bunch of live streams that we're planning to run on election night. And we wanted to get a test run before we went big with, blasting this off to our entire mailing list. So I appreciate those of you who are tuning in. If you have any questions or comments that you want to drop in the chat, we'll get those directly here on our streaming platform. I'm in the incredible position of having producer powers and also being on the
It's terrible.
on being on the podcast. So while we were testing earlier, I was just making banners that can just undermine Ari, which is incredible.
It's every editor's worst nightmare, truly.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. So I'll be creating banners throughout the show. They might look something like this, something really, really nice and fun that we can just pivot to whenever we want. This is going to be kind of the vibe of what we're doing, is me playing around a little bit, but we do have some actual news and some stuff to cover. So
change that back real quick.
In order to do that, I wanted to bring in our trusty editor and communications lead, Will Kback, who we talk about all the time on the podcast, usually throw him under the bus. But today we're going to bring him in to do some real podcasting. We're going to talk a bit about this Friday edition that is coming out tomorrow, some of the stuff that's going on in the final days of this race, including some of my closing thoughts about the election. So, Will Kback, welcome to the show.
What's up, everybody? Good to be here.
Thanks for dropping in. Wow, smooth. That was first test down. I nailed that transition.
We can't let him get too confident, Will. You have to side with me, because
imagine on election night me having all the controls and also being able to have alcohol. And look, I could even do this. Look, John's in here now. Hey, John.
Whoa.
Oh, look at that.
I was meant to be in the background.
Imaginary producer and not supposed to be on the live stream, but I can just do that whenever I want. All right, see you, John.
This is the real answer to the question of, Isaac, why don't you run for president? Because you should not have that power.
Is what it would look like.
I can't have that power. All right, boys, we got a lot to cover. There's a ton going on. I want to start in Michigan. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important and kind of, I guess, the most important at the intersection of things that are very important and things that are unknown in this election. Michigan, to me, is like right at the intersection of that. I'm publishing something tomorrow, which is basically a, 25 closing thoughts about the election. And one of the points that I'm going to make in tomorrow's newsletter and podcast is just that I have no idea what the Kamala Harris campaign is doing in Michigan right now. And I think they might actually blow it. I genuinely think they might actually blow it. And the setup for this, I guess, the comparison that I'll just give is I've been following the news there closely. I've made this prediction that Trump is going to lose Pennsylvania but win Michigan. I'm not 100% sure about this. It's kind of a gut thing because the polls are so close. But Donald Trump is touring the state right now, talking about how pro-Muslim he is. He's talking about how he's going to end the war in Gaza. They're leaking stuff to the Times of Israel, which has published a story that was everywhere yesterday, where Trump's reportedly telling Netanyahu that he's got to wrap the war up before Trump gets into office. He's touting the endorsement of a Muslim mayor in Michigan. And the Kamala Harris campaign is trotting out Liz Cheney, who's like a meme of a warmonger, and then Bill Clinton, who spent basically 3 minutes riffing yesterday or the day before about how Muslim American and Arab American voters should understand why all the death in Gaza is happening, and it's because of Hamas. In what felt to me like a kind of patronizing speech, toward Arab American voters, especially young Arab American voters. Trump strategy seems a lot better to me than Harris's if there's a few 100,000 votes on the table to win. And I don't know. That's how I'm setting the table. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I'd be getting pretty jittery if I were her right now.
I mean, for me, the questions remain the same and they remain unanswered. What you're pointing at is a couple indicators of how to answer those questions. And to me, it's two of them. One is something one of the readers asked earlier this week, which was, how do we think all of the voters in the Republican primary who cast their votes for Haley after she dropped out are going to vote this Tuesday? To which the answer is, we don't know. We have no idea. We have guesses and we have indicators, but that's the best that we have. And the flip side of that question is the one that you're kind of answering here, which is, what is that uncommitted vote in Michigan going to do that showed up in proportionally similar numbers in Michigan during the Democratic primary as protest Haley votes did in Michigan during the Republican primary? And the answer is, we don't know, but the indicators point to they don't look like they're going to budge away from this position they're taking of, we don't think the Democratic Party is doing enough to meet us where we are. They're taking us for granted. They think just because they're a little bit more to our side than the Republicans are means that they're going to get our votes no matter what. It's not true. We like neither party. We're willing to let the Democrats know that we're dissatisfied. And I've always thought that that has been a negotiating tactic that won't be followed through on by as many people, but I'm getting less and less convinced of that as the days go on. And that's my read.
Yeah, I think, Isaac, you've written about how one of Trump's great strengths as a candidate is that he can kind of be all things to all people. And I think we're kind of seeing that with how he's trying to appeal to people on both sides of this Gaza issue, specifically in Michigan, where the inherent contradictions in his his inherent contradictions in his position aren't really sticking to him in the way that they might another candidate. I'm sympathetic to the conundrum that the Harris campaign is in with how they have to position themselves on this issue, but I fully agree that the Liz Cheney, Bill Clinton surrogate approach is not one that is likely to work out for them, kind of given the demographics that they're working with. So I'm highly skeptical of how they've approached it in the past month, the last few weeks leading up to Election Day, and I think that they're in big trouble there too.
One of the things I'll just say about this with regards to Michigan is Democrats do have a strategy. It's not like they're just ignoring Arab American voters. They seem to believe that they can juice turnout among Republican moderates who won't vote for Trump. And they're going to the suburbs of traditionally Republican areas in Michigan and trying to talk to those voters. And I think that explains the Liz Cheney and the Bill Clinton. And that could honestly be a good strategy. I mean, we won't really know. I won't know until Election Day. I mean, that's what's going to prove whether it's a good strategy or not. But if they lose Michigan, especially if they win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, or they win Pennsylvania or Wisconsin and lose Michigan, the way that they handled the uncommitted vote is going to be the story of this election. And I think it'll be overblown, I'm sure, because at the end of the day, way more of the vote in Michigan and these swing states is dependent on things like immigration and the economy. But we will never hear the end of what the Harris campaign did. The postmortems on how they navigated the Arab American vote will literally go on for months if she loses Michigan, and that's a decisive part of this election. I'll say this, just like I feel like it's hard to figure out what's up and what's down right now because there's just so many narratives and so much information that the zone's just being flooded with. And I had this thought yesterday, and I'm including it in some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in the podcast and the newsletter tomorrow. I have the inklings of a theory that I'll flesh out in real time with you guys, which is that I think we might be living in a red bubble today. In 2016, the narrative after Trump won was that the media, Americans more generally, the pundit class, the business class, corporate America, basically everybody except like the quote unquote real working class Americans in the Rust Belt missed Trump and missed his rise. And the explanation for how that happened was that we were all living in this bubble that insulated us from the perspectives of people who might support or vote for Trump. And because we all existed and lived around people who only supported Democrats or liberals or thought Trump was this abhorrent character, we all missed his rise. Without passing judgment on whether that theory is accurate or holds up now, years later, I'll just say that I think if there's a bubble right now, it's actually a Trump bubble. In 2016, we didn't know. He was still sort of a less defined person and character. We were figuring out who he was. In the last 8 years, we have been living in Trump's world. I mean, we are living in Trump's world. The entire political apparatus of both parties revolves around him. Harris's campaign is about an anti-Trump campaign. Biden's presidency was about defeating Trump, and Trump's candidacy is obviously about Trump. And the information ecosystems, I think, are now skewed towards him. Twitter, which is where so many journalists get their talking points and so much of the media seedlings are put into the ground, is just very obviously tilted towards Trump right-wing talking points now. I mean, I have experienced and seen this, but now we have actual reporting about it. We're talking about we're not debating whether Trump should sit down with 60 Minutes in the final days of the election. We're talking about whether Kamala Harris should go on Joe Rogan's podcast. We are in the red bubble. And I think there's a chance that our perception of things are skewed, including my own, given I picked Trump to win. And that we're going to come out of this in a few weeks and realize that Harris actually won the election by a decent margin, and the support and enthusiasm for her was obvious and was there the whole time and has been there since 2020 and 2022, since Roe fell, and that we were just all too obsessed with Trump and sort of ascribe some kind of superpower to him that allowed him to just defy all political gravity. I don't know if that theory is going to be true, but it's the inkling of a theory that I have going into the final days of this election.
I think you definitely have to define what you mean by we when you say we're living in a red bubble right now, because we kind of live in a tangle-ish bubble, not really a bubble, I guess, like a spider with tendrils that goes into different bubbles. But I think a lot of people are in their media ecosystems where they're learning about the things that reaffirm their worldviews, and we spend all of our time trying to move from bubble to bubble, like us and the people who relate to Tangle all the time. So we have a little bit of a skewed impression of the way that most people have an impression. So it's maybe what you mean by us living in that bubble is the 20% or so of people that try to actively step outside of their echo chambers are inundated with this narrative about Trumpism and the current edge that breed of conservatism has in popular thought. But I don't know if that carries over to the other big bubbles that exist. But maybe part of what you're saying is that sort of informs the way the narratives are formed within those bubbles. And now it gets kind of meta and I've lost track of it. But
really quick, I think I can answer the question. I mean, when I say we are living in this red bubble, I mean the opinion makers. I mean, not just mainstream media, but the sort of fractured, more independent media like the one we exist in, all the independent influencers, from Jake Paul, who endorsed Trump today, all the way to Joe Rogan, who's brought on Trump and JD Vance, to Theo Von, to everybody, the CNN, MSNBC, Fox News obsess over Trump. The New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal obsess over Trump. All these influencers, these alternative media sources, they obsess over Trump. That's my point, is it's just Trump. And I think that has created it's given him like a different power and gravitas in the election where it's like, it's hard for people to imagine he's going to lose. And again, I think he's going to win, but I'm just like second guessing my own biases and gut that maybe actually I'm just falling victim to this kind of new reality, and that actually the polls are right. Harris is in the lead. They might even be underestimating the Harris support. And Trump hasn't won an election, and the Republican Party has underperformed in every election since 2016. So, like, why are we betting on him? Again, I don't know. I'm not even sure I believe this. It's just like, I had the thought and I'm having trouble shaking it.
Well, I think another aspect of this that I know you also are going to talk about in the piece, Isaac, is the role that X is going to play since Elon Musk has taken over it. And there was a Wall Street Journal report that came out this week that was basically investigating what kind of content X was going to show you when you created a new account, and even indicated apolitical interests in the kind of things that you wanted to see. And by a 2-to-1 margin, it was pro-Trump content over pro-Harris content. I know that as a frequent user of X, I've seen that in both the recommended things that I get, the recommended follows that I get. I think that on one hand, X is its own bubble, and we know that that tends to be clustered and not very representative of the overall population. But I do think it's still a massive platform, and I think having somebody like Musk throwing the entire weight of his influence behind this operation and changing the platform in such a meaningful way, I think it could have an effect, and I think that it could be contributing to like the bubble that you described. Whether that's going to be enough to overpower some of the other advantages that I think Trump has in this election, I'm not sure, but I think social media remains just such a potent force in all of this, and I think with each successful election, it's going to continue to be more and more influential.
I have just a quick thought tied to, I guess it's related to X and just the absolute kind of shitstorm that it's turned into from my view. It's not just that I think Musk is thumbing the scales a little bit algorithmically, which I think is, I mean, I don't want to say it's indisputable, but it seems very obvious. It seems apparent to me, at least when I go on the platform. I have a very mixed, obvious, but by the nature of my work, the people I follow, the posts I engage with, who I respond to, it is like eclectic and diverse. And when I go to that For You tab, and even when I'm in the Following tab, it is just like always 90% of the time, the first few things I see are pro-Trump type posts. It's content that, I ascribe to being something that would make you think better of Trump and worse of Democrats. And the reality of that being the case is that the people who are promoting that stuff, their following grows. And so the other thing that's happening now, it's not just that like your average user goes in and they get bombarded with more pro-Trump stuff. It's that the people who post more pro-Trump stuff are rewarded on the platform with more engagement and more following and a larger audience. And that has like the long tail of that, I think, is really, really important, because it doesn't just impact them on Twitter, it impacts them if they're promoting a YouTube channel or a newsletter, whatever it is. Like platforms like the Free Press, or, Tucker Carlson's subscribers only show, or, Ben Shapiro's podcast, like those places are benefiting from that, not just on X, but also on other platforms. And I don't think we really understand like the reach and the importance of that quite yet, but I suspect it's plays a bigger role than maybe we think when we're talking about the differences between 2016 and 2020 and what we're experiencing now. So I don't know. I mean, I'm unsure how it's going to play out, but it feels hard to imagine a world where it's not super relevant in the future.
In the future, I know you're moving on, but I think you mentioned long tail, and I do think that's going to have an effect. But when we think about the way it's going to impact the way people view the candidates in this election after 8 years of knowing who Donald Trump is and having that be something that kind of dominates the way that we see this race, I don't know if it's going to be enough time to have an effect to try to shape the way people are going to make their decisions. Agree with you that long term, for the future of the way people form their opinions online, that's going to matter a lot. I'm just not sure if that long tail is if it's here yet before November 5th.
For those of you who are just tuning in on the live stream here, want to say welcome. Thanks for showing up. We are going to be doing a big election night stream that's starting probably around 7 or 8 o'clock on election night. And so we wanted to get a little test run in with a smaller audience than the massive Tangle audience. So we've sent this live stream out to a few people, and obviously those of you who follow us on YouTube have dropped in. If you have questions, thoughts, things you want to hear us talk about, we're going to wrap up the podcast today with some listener Q&A. So feel free to drop something in the chat. I'm playing around with the way we produce stuff and trying to figure out how this whole live stream thing works before election night. I can do stuff like this, like show William Fleming's question on the screen, and then we can talk about it and answer it. So we'll get to that, William. I think it's a comment that I actually want to address. So feel free to drop something in the chat, and towards the end of the show, we'll try and do that. We've got Will Kback, our editor, here for a few more minutes, and he's not normally on the Tangle pod. So before he gets out of here, I know this is something you have thoughts about, Will, and it's something, again, that we're going to be talking about, I'm sure, up to Election Day. Everybody is just clinging on to hope at this point, whether you're a Trump supporter or a Kamala Harris supporter. And I'm interested to kind of hear from you guys what you think the positive signs are for both campaigns. I have my own answers to this question, but before I poison the well, I'd be curious to hear from you guys. Maybe we can start with Will and then Ari. You can pick either campaign or both, but I'm just interested, if you're trying to inject optimism into Harris supporters or optimism into Trump supporters, what would you tell them about what's happening right now and why they might feel enthusiastic?
Yeah, to start with the Trump camp, I think the comment we just had from William about the energy on his side, I think is absolutely true. I think especially down the stretch in the last 2 weeks, we've seen a side of Trump that is not just his usual bombastic self, but there's a real confidence and almost a relaxed nature to him at rallies when he's doing stunts like this garbage truck thing yesterday, the McDonald's from a week ago. I think we're seeing that retail politics skill at its absolute peak for him. And he's already somebody who's good at that. And I think we're also seeing just a real normalization in public of people being very confident to go out and display their support for him in a way that I definitely don't think was the case in 2016 and was less so the case in 2020. So I think there is kind of a surge of energy in his base that is a lot more visible this time around. And I think that does make an impact on the outcome of an election. So I would feel really good about just the confidence that the campaign is projecting. I don't think that they're just making it up or that they're trying to create confidence by appearing that way. I think it's legitimate. But on the Harris side, I always come back to Democrats are just so organized and they have such good fundamentals in these national campaigns. They're so well funded. They've run these operations before and they've succeeded with them. So I think we just have to remember that they are going to create a level of support as a baseline that is going to be really strong in the places where they need it because of how well funded and how well organized their operations are. So I think that's when I hear people say Trump is headed for a blowout or Trump is going to run the slate in the swing states. I think we're really undervaluing just the level of basic organization that Democrats have to prevent something like that happening.
A lot of similar things to what Will said, especially just to start with Trump, that the side of him that we've seen in the last couple of weeks has been almost fun. And if not just downright fun. That kind of impression that you get as a voter really undercuts the message that Democrats want you to leave with when you enter the voting booth, which is, remember, this is the guy who stood on that stage at the Ellipse where Kamala Harris just delivered her final address on January 6th. And you can interpret that message that he gave to his audience a number of ways. I know people have, but just that he was there. His supporters went to the Capitol, and they want you to associate those two things. He didn't concede the election, certainly not right away. And that is the vision they're trying to sell you, is the fire and fury version of Trump. But the version of Trump that we're getting in front of us on camera, in podcasts, on stage, is a guy wearing a high-vis garbage man outfit, riding on a branded garbage truck, going to McDonald's. Like, it's fun. And he's funny. And when you associate this person who's smiling and trying and saying the words love fest a lot about his rallies, it's hard to get those images to really stick. And he does have the momentum. So if it's Trump's campaign looking at the way that the race is going, you can say that he's chipping away and it's a matter of time. The only question is, do they have it? If that's the positive message, and that they probably do. The positive message for Democrats is all of the red alarms that we're hearing about Michigan come from a position where they are already on top. So Democrats already 4 weeks ago, a month ago, right when, or even go back to when Harris entered the race, they had a 1.5 to 2 points, sometimes more advantage amongst people who were polled in the state. That had been consistent. If this uncommitted vote pushes things to the point where red alarms are going off, and the red alarm is it's a toss-up in Michigan, that's a pretty good worst case scenario. If Democrats win Pennsylvania, and it looks like early return voting, or early voting data, which we're going to get into, hard to interpret, but if it's showing positive signs for Democrats in Pennsylvania, if they do carry that state, they don't even need Michigan if they win North Carolina. And if you're thinking we just need a split in Michigan and North Carolina, it's 50-50. Your odds are 75% chance now. If you win Pennsylvania, you're going to win the election. Yeah. So statistically, keep in mind the perspective is what I would say. So it's just a matter of, like, you can read these tea leaves a number of ways, but I think that's the best story to see for Democrats.
Mine is, if you're the Harris campaign, there's a massive gender gap in the early vote, and I think the Trump camp is kind of freaking out about it. It's a little bit low key, but Charlie Kirk's got a pinned tweet. He's got a pinned tweet on his profile right now. That's like, if men don't show up, you're going to have to listen to Kamala Harris cackle for the next 5 years or whatever. I mean, in Pennsylvania, Politico did this big analysis of the early vote, and they found that a third of voters who have already voted in this election that did not vote in 2020 were registered Democratic women. That kind of number to me is like the early sign that we could just see a massive bout of enthusiasm from women, especially Democratic women. That would be enough to change the race. So if I'm the Harris campaign, I am focused on that. I'm looking at the Trump campaign, freaking out about this a little bit, urging men to go vote on election day. And I'm thinking that's pretty good for us. If I'm the Trump campaign, I think the fundamentals of the race are that Harris can't screw up anywhere, basically. Like, she can afford zero mistakes. She can't lose Michigan. She can't lose Wisconsin. She can't lose Pennsylvania. And all three of those races are incredibly competitive. And you're just hoping that you get one of them, or you have like one polling error or whatever it is, or the uncommitted vote in Michigan actually commits to not voting. And then you have like an opening where you just have to win Georgia and North Carolina, or you just have to win Georgia and Arizona to bring the race home. Again, like, looking at these states individually, I think a fairly likely outcome here is that Kamala Harris wins Pennsylvania and loses the election. So, to me, it's not just about one of those blue wall states. But if I'm the Trump campaign, I'm just like, we are within striking distance with all the quote unquote momentum, at least in the media and the press, at our back, and the support of, somebody like Elon Musk, people like Joe Rogan platforming us, giving us the megaphone to talk to people who aren't typical voters. And I feel pretty good about that. I think it's going to be an incredibly, incredibly tight race. I have no idea what's going to happen. I have my hunches and my inklings, but at the end of the day, like it's going to come down to the wire, and I think both sides can grasp onto something. If this is a race with a lot of turnout from women and a lot of enthusiasm from women, I think Democrats are going to win. I think Kamala Harris is going to win. If this is a race where young men who don't typically show up to vote actually get turned into voters and are activated by the Trump campaign, then I think he'll win and probably do so in fairly dominant fashion with, across the swing states. So that's my read on it. I'm, not updating too much about how I feel tomorrow in our final big election, podcast and newsletter before we get to actual election day, but you'll get those thoughts a little bit more fleshed out tomorrow.
To throw in just one more thing that I'm thinking about. This is something that I saw today, and I think this is truly the definition of you are going to project what you want to happen onto a stat like this. But we have some friends over at Blueprint, which is a Democratic polling firm, but they do some really interesting polling and surveys in the swing states and about messaging for both candidates. Their last poll and survey before the election came out today, and one finding that jumped out to me was 48% of the swing state voters they talked to plan to split their ticket. So I think that's maybe a narrative to keep an eye on. Again, there's no indication of what direction that's going to go, but I think that it makes sense, right? We've seen some big gaps between the Senate polling and the presidential polling in the swing states. And I think that that's a narrative to keep your eyes on when we come to election day.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, there is a world where the polls are just right and Democrats clean up in the Senate and Harris either wins or loses by a whisker. I mean, that seems totally reasonable to me. I do think we underestimate how many people split ticket vote. In this environment, it's so hard to imagine, but they're out there, I guess. I mean, there's no denying it.
Seems unbelievable, I know, but yeah.
All right. Will, we're going to let you go, man. Thanks for joining us. For those of you tuning in on the stream, a good look at the handsome young mug that helps make Tangle happen every day. Appreciate you being here with us. And Will's literally in the room directly behind me right now. So the Tangle team is assembling in Philadelphia. We're glad to be here. Will, we'll spend some more time with you on election night, man.
Thanks for having me on, you all.
All right. So we have a couple more things left, and then we're going to move into some of the questions in the chat. Again, if you have just tuned in, please feel free to leave any questions or thoughts for the live stream and the podcast. We're going to publish this on Sunday as our Sunday podcast. So if you're in here right now, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but we had to get something tested for before we went live in a big way on election night, which we're going to do. All right, Ari, we've made a habit out of some games. Yeah, games. See, now people can actually see. This is what we're doing. We're throwing the guns up while we're you've got a couple games. I have a little bit of an inkling of what they are. They're very vaguely described in our podcast notes. So I'm interested to see where this goes. But I guess I'll let you're the game master. I'll let you drive.
For this week, yeah. So we got a really phenomenal email from a reader in the staff email box this past week named Eric Vanderhayden, who said that he wished that he's always wanted to have an impact on Tangle. He wished he could be that guy who just like scours the newsletter and finds the mistake and lets us know about it and helps us get better that way. And then when we started doing games in the podcast, he said, this is the way I leave my impact. I have so many good ideas for games. He sent me like 5 or 6 and I took a couple and we're going to play 2 of them today. So the first one that I want to play is called Super PAC or West Wing episode title, which is pretty self-descriptive. I have a list of names and these names are either of Super PACs or of West Wing episode titles.
Okay, hold on one second. Before you start, I have to see if I can look at this. A banner for the game.
That's helpful.
I'm an
I like that.
unbelievable producer. John, you're fired, dude. You're out, bro. Sorry, man.
He's muted.
I
It's
muted him too.
unbelievable. I do not like we need to bring more balance to our
There
branches of
needs to be
government
some
here in
checks and
Tangled.
balances on this platform.
That'll be another
S-
question: is if Tangle is a government, like which branch of government are we? But we'll
yeah.
get to that maybe a different day. The game is Super PAC or West Wing episode title. I'll tell you, before when I got this list, I found that I actually did pretty well on this. I just missed two. So I have no way of proving that, but it's the gauntlet that I'm throwing down. I want to see if you can
All
get
right.
10 out of 12 or half would be great.
Wait.
How do you
How many
feel?
are we doing?
We're doing 12.
Whoa. Okay.
It's rapid fire. It's not going to take too long. Just going to give you the title of what is either a Super PAC or a West Wing episode.
All right.
Well, how much do you know about West Wing? Did you ever watch the show?
Funny enough, my dad was obsessed with West Wing, like most, blue dog Democrats were. And so it was on the TV all the time, but Phoebe started watching it as like a trashy go-to show recently. It was, it was very funny. In fact, I remember very vividly, there was an episode where someone Phoebe was like in the midst of law school and she was unbelievably tired. It was like the hardest period of her life in law school. She was super tired and just like strung out and hadn't been sleeping and had all these finals going on. And we watched an episode of West Wing to unwind one night. And it was an episode where a lawyer got appointed to the Supreme Court and Phoebe started weeping when the episode came. It was hilarious. I was like, you're literally crying about an episode of West Wing. I didn't make fun of her at the moment. I comforted her like a good husband, but then I made fun of her a lot later.
I mean,
Once
I'm
she
with
came out of
William
it.
Fleming here, the reader, who said like trashy. I don't know if you can call West Wing a trashy show. It's definitely
It's
like
not,
idealistic and
yeah.
fantastical.
I wouldn't say it's trashy, but it's like it's mindless TV. Like you don't have to. You can like fall in and out of an episode. It's like, oh, his daughter's sick, or like there's a fight in the Senate. And then you come back at the end and the music's playing and they figured it out and he's still president. It's like that's every episode. Sorry, I mean it's okay, but it's
All
not
right, we're gonna
trashy.
get
That's
into it.
fair. Go ahead. All right,
We'll
let's
get
do
into
it.
it. So, Title One: Super PAC or West Wing episode. My America.
Wow, West Wing episode.
Super PAC.
Shit.
All right.
All right. This is going
Had
to
to
be
start
really
somewhere.
hard.
It's
All
going to be
right.
stressful.
All right.
Number two: American Sunrise.
West Wing episode.
Super PAC.
Oh, all right.
You'll get one probably. It's all right.
Okay.
Number three: Dead Irish Writers.
That has to be, that can't be. All right. Super PAC.
West Wing episode.
Of course. God. That was
I
the
saw you downing
layup.
yourself. Like, I'm not going to say it 3 times in a row, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was obviously a West Wing episode, but then I figured you were trying to fool me. I'm seeing
I'm not sure.
ghosts, man.
This isn't even my game.
All right.
This is courtesy of one of our lovely readers, and I'm just
I'm
reading them.
completely shook. I don't know what's what.
Okay, well, let's get you on the board here. Next up, 5 votes down.
West Wing episode.
West Wing episode. There
All
you
right,
go.
I like
on the
it.
board. You got it. Okay, you feeling better?
Not really, but keep going.
We'll push through. Okay, the internet.
That's it. The internet.
The internet.
If that's the name of a super PAC, that's incredible. West Wing episode.
Super PAC.
Come on. There's a super PAC called the internet.
How amazing is that? I love that.
I have to look this up while we're on. All right, keep going.
It is a great name for, I mean, remember that the West Wing came out in the transition to the internet age? I could see that being the name of a episode, but that'd be kind of strange. I guess it's strange as the title for either.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, 2,162 votes.
What was the other one was 5 votes to go. 2,000
5 votes down was the other one.
That's a West Wing episode.
That is a West Wing episode.
I
You
remember
got
that
it.
episode
You do?
vaguely. I just remember like there was the theme. It was like yeah, I remember that part.
Okay. Sorry. Next up, in this White House.
In this White House. West Wing episode.
100%. And this is one of those that I definitely remember where President Bartlett gives one of those speeches and he's talking to the reporter or the radio show host who is sitting while he's speaking. And he says, in this White House, when the president stands, everybody does, or something like that. It was better when Sorkin wrote it. Moving on.
That's a great scene. That's like that's a classic example of a scene that like my dad watches and he's like, you're goddamn right. And I'm just like, yes. All right, Dad, take it easy. It's just West Wing, relax. Yeah. But that really gets him going.
All right. Just drink the Kool-Aid.
I mean, it sounds completely absurd to be a super PAC, which is why I'm going to say super PAC.
It is a super PAC. That's good. Well done.
Right.
That's one of the ones I missed, by the way. So well done.
I like to hear that.
A Promise to Our Children.
West Wing episode.
Super PAC.
What do you know what they do?
I don't. I do not. That would have been a cool thing to come prepared with, huh?
Low key, I think super PACs that are named that way probably do creepy stuff. I just like I don't know.
I do trust a super PAC called The Internet, though. I know that's just filled with weirdos.
That feels like a
exactly
troll.
what they're about.
They probably raise like $5,000 a year or something. All right.
We're really close here. We just have 3 more. Putting America First.
Well, obviously sounds like a super PAC. Putting America First. Could that be the name of a West Wing? Yeah. Yeah, West Wing episode.
Super PAC.
Damn.
You're really in your head here. I know you're going to get these last 2. You got it.
All right.
The Fall's Gonna Kill You.
The West Wing episode.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Take This Sabbath Day.
Wow. Is this the beginning of a Jew joke? West Wing episode.
West Wing episode. That brings you to 50%. So you got 6 out of 12.
What did you say? How many you got?
10.
You got 10 out of 12 on that?
I did, yeah. But I can't back that up. It's just the thing that I'm saying here. And you can put the scroll. You're going to put the crawler on, right? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that teed up. You like that?
A little unoriginal, but it's all right. They can't all be hits.
All right. What's the next game? I got to make a new banner. I'm practicing my production skills.
Next game is, can you name the 5 least accurate states in picking a president? So this is something that I haven't looked into yet. We got when the reader Eric sent this in, he sent a link to what the site is that has the answers. So I know about as much of it as you do. I know that the title that he gave for this game was, quote, "So Goes Ohio." Great. Very good. Because as we know, Ohio is the state that predicts election winners, or is thought to the most anyway. I don't even know if that's true. So the question is kind of the opposite. What are the 5 states that are least accurate at picking the president? And I don't know.
I think I have a pretty good few guesses. One of the questions I have is, so do you have the answers ready?
They are in a separate tab that I have not opened yet. Yeah.
Can you look at the answers and tell me what the time frame is? That feels really important.
I hope so. Let me see if I can do that without ruining the answers.
Well, is this for both of us, or is it for
I want to see if I can play too. Okay, I do. I can. So I have it right now. I have a list of answers. It's sorted from most accurate to least accurate. So I only see the top 6 or 7 most accurate. It is of all time. So it's going back to 1790. Whoa. The most accurate state at predicting the president is New Mexico. Interesting.
Okay. If it's going back to 7, God, that's really tough. All right. I have some guesses. That time frame makes it way, way harder. but I will say my number one guess is Alabama. I think that's probably the least accurate at predicting, one of the least accurate. You want to go every other here, or you want to try and do your own list? You
I
tell
think
me.
my list is going to be kind of dumb. Like I have one thought and I'm just spamming it, which is I know that around the Civil War, just after the Civil War, that the parties sort of switched in terms of the way that like their platforms were built, and that switch from Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican, somewhat revolved around the way we think of the South. And if I think that a lot of the, I'm just thinking that the South probably is going to have a lot of states that, because of the reverse in polarity, missed out on the correct presidential winner. I don't even know if that's good logic, but that means that my answers are just going to be Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia. That's it.
Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia.
Yep.
All right. I'm California, Alabama, Hawaii, New York, and like New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay. So what's the, so you have Alabama, California, Hawaii, New Jersey. What was the other one?
New York.
New York. Okay. So you have one by current standards deep red state and then 4 deep blue states.
Yeah, correct.
What's the thought process there?
Really, California and New York seem like as close to slam dunks as I can think. I mean, as far as I know, well, I mean, obviously, like when we get to the 1800s, the whole realignment, it gets messy. But I just think like we've had more elections. Oh man, I don't know. It's really hard. Now that I'm thinking it through, I'm not really sure. I'm so biased towards the last 100 years.
Right.
But like
Those states are large, so
Hawaii's a new state and has always been blue as far as I know. That's honestly maybe the one I feel most confident about.
Okay.
Least accurate states. Yeah. All right. You ready to let it rip?
I'm ready to let it rip. All I can see though is that I'm looking at the chat. I don't see anybody offering their own answer. So suspiciously quiet. Oh, there's one. Somebody saying Mississippi, which is one of the one that I see.
Yeah, Wes.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay. I got the list. I'm scrolling. And the least accurate is Washington, D.C., which I guess is a state.
Total hoax. Not a state. Not even close to a state.
It's pretty close. It's a voting district.
This game's been completely corrupted. No, we don't recognize Washington State. All right, keep going.
Washington, D.C.
Well, I know we don't recognize Washington, D.C. as a state.
Okay, then I'll just give you the next 5.
All right.
Sounds pretty good, these first 3. Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and then Texas, South Dakota.
Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, South Dakota. Wow. South Dakota is good because South Dakota is also like newish.
Wow. That is interesting. South Dakota, much worse at predicting the president than North Dakota by a lot. I don't know how to explain
I should have thought of
that.
more states like that were founded more recently. Like South Dakota's only been around since the late 1800s, which helps it. All right, where are New York and California and New Jersey on this list? And Hawaii. Hawaii's got to be top 10. There's no way.
Hawaii is 6, 7, 8, 9. If you don't count DC, it's 9.
I don't.
And then, yeah, I think not looking amazing for you. I'm scrolling a lot. New Jersey's in the top half.
Can you change the date range on this? This is going back to the 1700s.
I don't think that I can. I can just read the list. You know, we take the good with the bad. New York is the 6th most accurate state at picking the president. And California is the 3rd most accurate state.
Okay.
That's a
All
tough one
right.
to wear, bud.
Yeah, that's tough. All right, cool. Oh God, I'm screwing this up.
That's like
All right.
the most like momentum robbing
Yeah, that's
segue that I
really
think I've
tough.
heard from you.
All right, we're gonna move into some audience questions to wrap up the podcast today. After I just got obliterated in that game by Ari, we had a few. I'm gonna scroll up. We had a few that popped up that I really liked.
The chat is
Some
currently getting absolutely dominated by Pit Ultimate players, which I very much enjoy.
love that H2P. What candy or other item do you give out? William Fleming asked. I need to. I'll go first. Twix, because you give out the best candy to kids or else you're a chump. So Twix is the best. Reese's Pieces, the little ones, or the 2-pack with the big cups, both work. Kit Kats. That's what we're loaded with for tonight. Because when I was a kid, I remember you get a Twix or like a Kit Kat and it was lit. Is how I guess now, as I said that, maybe like Nerd Ropes or something would have been pretty cool. But those are the go-to candies that I'm going to be dishing.
And for me, I was brought up in a household where Halloween was like there's a time to save and a time to spend. And Halloween was a time to spend. So my dad, his belief was you give out the king size bars on Halloween. Go to Costco, he would get a box of Snickers, a king size, a box of king size Three Musketeers for the people who don't have good taste, and then a box of king size Twix. And when we've given out candy, that's what we've done. But recently, I think the last couple of years in Pittsburgh, when we were just sort of decimated a little bit by the pandemic, we didn't have as many trick-or-treaters. I didn't put as much effort in, and we just went with like the grab bag, Kit Kat, Reese's, Twix, fun size bars. I didn't feel good about that. That wasn't in line with my values. That was a regression for me. I apologize to the children in that neighborhood. You deserved more. You didn't get it. I promise to be better in the future. But those are the best candies to get at Halloween. Nerds Rope's great, but
Yeah.
I'm a chocolate candy bar household for sure.
Dude, check this out. You can just blast Will on stage, just stuffing his face on the live
That's
stream.
heinous.
What's up, everybody? This office has great snacks. This office has great snacks.
Smooth as
Ready
silk.
to go.
Speaking of candy, Kit Kats, Reese's,
Wow.
Twizzlers. I'll take anything, but
No hesitation. That's a confident
is
guy
great.
right there.
I don't know if I'm gonna
Unbelievable drip from Will. Good, nice, dude.
Put him
All
back.
right. All right, cool. Next question from Wes. I've been hearing more than a couple of people saying that they think Trump has the popular vote locked up. That anecdotally sounds like a bubble to me. Electoral college is a toss-up, but popular vote? ? Yeah, I've been hearing this too. I have some degenerate friends who gamble a ton, and they're all texting me because on Polymarket and all these gambling markets right now, you can bet like close to even odds on Kamala Harris winning the popular vote. I think it's personally insane. I think she is definitely going to win the popular vote. I understand that Trump's campaigning in New York and he's even gone to California and he's trying to dig in. I just like the national polling numbers seem pretty right. Like polling certain battlegrounds is difficult, but like in 2020 and 2016 on the popular vote, the national polls were pretty close to accurate. I mean, Clinton won the popular vote by a few million. Harris or Biden, excuse me, won the popular vote by a few million. I have not seen anything that makes me think that Donald Trump is going to win the popular vote. Gamble responsibly, but that has been the thing that I've told people.
Right. I don't have a ton to add to that. I think Donald Trump's probably not going to win the popular vote. It's possible, but Republicans haven't been outperforming their 2016 performance since Trump was elected in office, and he didn't win the popular vote then. So it just basic reasoning, it's not likely. And if the Electoral College is a toss-up, it's probably not going to be the case that the popular vote isn't going to be something Democrats win, just where the numbers go. We do have, I'm talking to a person who is involved with betting markets for political races and such. And I'm interested in trying to get him to write a reader submitted essay for after the election, just to talk about things that they learned and observed and data from this election. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I think we could probably get some good insights. And if you're interested in something like that, just shoot me a message, I guess, the people on the stream, and I'll try to add some pressure to get that done.
Really quick before we switch to our next question, got to shout out Wesley, who sent me a bottle of bourbon as a gift. Phenomenal bottle of bourbon that I will be drinking with Ari and John in 24 hours tomorrow night. It was excellent. Thank you, Wes. New thing, if you feel compelled to send me bottles of bourbon, I'm all ears. Just shoot me an email. That was a first for me, but I was very appreciative and pumped about it. So thank you, Wes, for doing that. Here's a familiar face, Andrew Maganelli.
Boot him. Get him out of the chat.
No, come on. Of MKBHD fame, Andrew is a good friend of ours and a producer on Marquez Brownlee's YouTube channel, which is way, way, way more well-known than ours. Why is the Sunday podcast on Thursday? Hot take, hot off the press. We produce this show before Sunday, so it's a little bit of a misnomer. It drops every Sunday, but we record on Thursdays. And we do this because we love John and we don't want to make John work on Saturday nights or Sunday mornings having to record hours of an episode. So he does kind of end up working on the weekends anyway. My bad, John. But we always record. What's that? we always record on Thursdays, and and the podcast drops on Sunday. So thanks for the question. It was, dripping with, I don't know what the word is.
Irony,
exactly,
I guess, is the nice way to say it. Troll energy. I mean, I
troll
love you,
energy.
Freshman. It's a good question, though.
Dr. Crypto. Oh, man. I know who Dr. Crypto is, but since he's anonymous online, I'm not going to blow his spot up.
Don't dox him.
He's a family member of mine, actually. Not my immediate family, but he's a family member of mine whom I love dearly. And I imagine is watching this from his office in Seattle right now, just rage texting me on the side about Donald Trump because I love him and that's what he does. I think Elon is guilty of a lot of the things. The question is, how is Elon not guilty of everything the right accuses George Soros and Mark Zuckerberg of? I think he is guilty of a lot of the things that he accuses them, that the right accuses them of. Hot take. Maybe not even a hot take, medium rare take. He is doing the opposite of what he said he was going to do. I was a cheerleader of Elon Musk's acquisition of X. I was pumped about the idea of him being on the board of Twitter, of then Twitter. And when we found out he was going to buy it, I felt much more mixed about it because just the idea of one of the wealthiest people in the world owning this massive information platform made me nervous for exactly the reasons that we're seeing now, which is that he's decided to throw his hat in the ring politically, and he's clearly thumbing the scales in one direction. And I find it pretty disturbing and frustrating. So, there's one way to look at what's happening on the platform now, which is we are actually just seeing an unfiltered version of America. I actually don't think that's true. I think what we're seeing on the platform is an algorithm that's clearly thumbing the scales for pro-Trump content. And also for I hate the term conspiracy theories, but I am being confronted with more absurd theories and ideas about elections being stolen and hurricanes being controlled by the government and, aliens and all this stuff. You guys know, I kind of believe the alien stuff, but generally speaking, the information ecosystem seems way worse on X now than it did before. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ari, but I think he is guilty of those things. So that's how I feel.
The counterpoint, I suppose, is that sort of when Fox News started ramping up their conservative programming and the W. Bush years, that the mantra fair and balanced kind of applies here, of not that Elon Musk is fair and centrist and making the scales even, but that he sees himself as tipping them back towards balance, because we talk about the Democrats having a superior ground game all the time. That's because they outraise Republicans, and they have been for a little bit now. And the liberal media, quote unquote, is a term because it more or less is real. Like, we know that a lot of the people who work for center and center left organizations tend very strongly towards the left in their personal views, and that Elon Musk contributing much of his great fortune and effort and ability towards trying to help Republican causes right now is sort of that Fox News fair and balanced version of campaign donations. I think campaign donations, like most people think, are out of control, high, crazy. And the best way to solve it isn't by fighting more money with more money, but that if you want to try to come up with the argument for why it's actually all right, it's not that Elon isn't doing what Soros is, it's that he is, and that he should be.
Next question from Lindsay. Hey, Lindsay, good to see you. I think you had to sign off early because you said something in the chat. The question is, I know that Ike spoke with Andrew Yang in 2021, but why have we not heard more about or from the Forward Party and Tangle News during this election year? I actually invited Andrew to come on for the YouTube live stream on election night and do some real-time commentary. I've not heard back from him. I follow him and we've exchanged some messages here and there over the last few years. I do not think the Forward Party stuff is going particularly well, in part because it's really difficult to start a third party that has weight to throw around. I was actually kind of optimistic about what they were doing because I thought they had a good strategy, which was let's get people in the Senate and the House because it'll be easier to get them elected. And then we can, fight the fight of presidential elections somewhere down the road. They wanted to build like a caucus in Congress, which I think if you're trying to start a third party, that is the way to do it, is to bring people up through the political ranks and get a few seats in Congress and then start a coalition and like do some building around that. It's a long-term project. It's very possible that we hear about them in 10, 15, 20 years and they've made some kind of inroads. But yeah, I have not heard much from them. I think a big thing is that Andrew did not expect Trump to run again in 2024. I think a lot of people didn't expect him to. And I think he thought there was going to be this opening for a third party, but he is, in the blue-red scheme of things, he's a Democrat. And I think he did not want to be associated with a movement that maybe helped Trump get reelected. And that's probably why we haven't heard or seen much out of him since then. Really quick, I'll put this up for John. Look at this really nice comment from Wes. See, John? The people love you, man. They don't want you to go. This was, I think, when I made a joke about firing John because I was just on fire with the production here.
And for the audio
right.
listeners, it's a comment from Wesley saying that John should never leave because it would permanently hurt our audio production quality, which is true.
All right, I'm seeing a lot of spam chats from all the pit bros, those
are my boys. Love this
bunch
boys.
of dorks I'm gonna have to ignore. That's all right. Let's get Tristan's got to get Ari. You dressing up as Joe Rogan this year?
I don't know if I'm strong enough to dress up as Joe Rogan, to be honest. I can try to do the the posture. I mean, I have the hairline for it, but I can tuck my arms in and lean forward, and maybe this will count as me doing my Joe Rogan for this year. But we have practice tonight, so I'm not going to go in costume for that this year.
I love that.
Packing up to leave tomorrow to go to Philly, so got to try to get home, get everything in a bag, get some sleep, and then be out the door. But that Les Grossman costume I did feel very good about a couple years ago.
That is a good costume. All right, cool. Speaking of Ari having things to do tonight and everybody being in transit, we're going to start to wrap things up. My favorite part of the show, we get to enter the grievance zone for a little bit. Ari, do you want to go first or second? I can't
I have
tell.
so much to complain about. Let me
You
go
have to
first.
choose one. We can't listen to you complain for
I
30
know I'm gonna
minutes.
choose one. Do you want to choose one? I gave you some blurbs. If are you more interested in one of them? I could complain about any of them.
I'd like to hear about issues at the Canadian border. I'm into that.
Great. Let's talk about Canada. Let's talk about me trying to go to a hockey game a couple weeks ago. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh Penguins fan. I've never been to a game in Montreal. I've been told that by many people that it is the best place to watch a hockey game. There's an unmatched environment for fans, that the stadium seats are really steep, so you're right on top of the action the whole time. And they really appreciate the game. They really appreciate people who come in from other teams and like the sport. So my wife and I were going to put on a couple of hockey jerseys of some famous French Canadian Pittsburgh Penguins, Mario Lemieux and Chris Letang, and go up to Montreal. So we leave plenty early. Game is at 7:30. Puck drops at 7:30. We know that it takes about 80 to 90 minutes to get to Montreal from Burlington, Vermont, where we live. And we're going to go take a train in from just outside the town, which should be about 80 minutes away, another 30 with traffic, 30-minute train ride, 30 minutes to get to the stadium. So that would have us leaving around 5. We leave at 4:45 just to be safe. As we are going up to the border, Google Maps tells us that the wait at the border crossing is an hour and a half. So that's untenable. So we decide something that a lot of people probably ended up doing too, which was we're going to go through the smaller one that is just a little bit down the road and try to get through that way. And we are sitting in a parked line of traffic with our hockey jerseys on like idiots, trying to get to the border, not moving for about a half hour. And we've gone 3 or 4 car lengths. Nothing's happening. So we decide to try to take a U-turn to go to the other border crossing. While we're doing this, my wife discovers that the reason why the border crossing is so slow is that this is Canadian Thanksgiving. That Canada has their own Thanksgiving. It's in
Wow.
October.
Hoax alert.
And it does. We are getting crunched because 1, it means that there are fewer people staffing the border. And 2, it means it's a travel day for all the Canadians that came into the US, especially to Vermont, to look at the beautiful foliage, which I don't want to complain about people coming in to look at foliage. I don't want to be that guy, but I'll be that guy for today, just a little bit. And they're going back up to the border at the same time we are. So the lines are massively long, so long that we left at like before 5 o'clock. We're driving to the border. Everything's going fine. It is 6:45. Like, we've just been waiting for so long in different lines, and we have to make the decision we're going to turn around because of the Canadian Thanksgiving commuter traffic. We try to do a U-turn from the border crossing line, which is like impossible. So we accidentally pull in through a turnoff lane that looks like a turnoff lane for people that are trying to do exactly the thing that we're doing, but a gate is closed, so we can't pass through. So we try to back up. 4 armed police officers, as soon as we try to back up, come screaming out of the border crossing station. And they're like, "What are you doing? Why are you in reverse?" I'm like, we don't want to go through the border now. We see how packed it was. We just want to go back to the US. And they're like, "You do not ever reverse on this lane, ever." And we're like, "Sorry." And then they open the gate for us. So we're like, we kind of got what we wanted though. So I don't really feel bad. Did get scolded by a bunch of cops. And then the other border crossing person, as we tried to go from the US back into the US, asked us where we came from. And we had to sheepishly say like, "Yeah, just like 50 yards over there. We didn't get into Canada today." And he's like, "Oh yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving, right?" And we're like, "Yep." I said, "Better luck next time." And we're like, "Thanks, man." This was a fun 3.5-hour evening that we got to spend in the car, just driving to the Canadian border and back. Extremely frustrating. The Penguins won that game. That would have been a nice one to go to. So maybe next time.
Do we know? I'm looking this up right now. What Canada Thanksgiving is actually. Thanksgiving corresponds to the British and continental European Harvest Festival, with churches decorated with cornucopias, pumpkins, corn, wheat, sheaves, and other harvest
It's
bounties.
the same thing. Just do it on
It
the
doesn't
same
sound like the same thing.
It sounds how does that not sound like the same thing?
I guess it corresponds, but I mean, that seems too close to like an ode to the monarch for me.
Everything they do is just a little bit more of an ode to the monarch. So it's just their cultural tradition, I guess. It's Thanksgiving, but also the king was there.
That's what I think. Oh, the king. All right. Hey, John Lull, what's up, man?
Look, now I got the mic unmuted.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute you while you were muting yourself. All right, John's going to be ripping our production on. You have anything you want to say? I've seen you shaking your head. You're giving me the middle finger.
Let me tell you something. I should have played that West Wing game right from go.
Wow.
The fact that you got so many wrong is so disappointing.
I mean, I tried. What do you think you would have done much better? Did you know everyone?
I knew. I think I got one or two wrong, but yeah, I knew a bunch for sure.
Wow.
Thanks for correcting the quote too in our side chat.
Greg wants to know what my grievance is. Let me tell you something about working for Isaac.
Yes, I'm gonna mute myself. John, go.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. It's always great, and I love working on weekends. I mean, who doesn't?
Hey, we all work hard around here.
I will say, yep, we all work hard. We all put in a lot of time. It's really great. Love being a part of this team. But while I'm here real quick, I'm going to test something because that was the point of this. I want to test a couple of things to get ready for election night, which if you guys don't know or didn't get the message yet, we're going to be going live on election night. These handsome mugs, including this one right here, are going to be presenting.
What it do?
Presenting. They're going to be talking with a bunch of guests. We've got a really good guest lineup, and I'm super impressed. Shout out to Will Kback, the man. And
Communications lead.
Communications lead editor. I call him the best sixth man. The dude can do literally everything, all of our jobs.
As you said the other day, actually, you said this at our team retreat. We were just like, I think Will was in the back of a pickup truck, a little bit inebriated, and you were like, "We're all going to be working for that guy one day." I was like, "Yeah, we are."
You're going to keep my secrets.
Yeah.
I want to see if this thing works real quick. Let's try this.
The airing of grievances.
Wow, that's really nice. I'm hearing
That would have been nice to have before mine, John.
That's a lovely dress you have on. May I have this dance?
Okay,
That's
that's good to know.
All right.
I will do one other thing and take us out of here. Oh,
That's good.
You like that? That's pretty slick, right?
Great.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Before Isaac gets to give his, awesome. We're done.
All right, sweet. We're cooking. I have to give my grievance.
Oh, whoops.
Don't outro music me. This is like being a
We
comedy
need more
show.
checks
Someone
and
says,
balances. This is great.
I'm getting control of this thing. All right, John's out of here. Will's out of here. All right, I'm back. You know what? Ari's out of here. See that? I could do that whenever I want. All right, everybody. All right. This is not as, all right. That was a great grievance. One of your all-time best, I have to say.
I'm not actually that mad at
Canadian
Canada, but I'm a
Thanksgiving,
bit.
running with armed police. It had everything. Mine is much less interesting. Phoebe and I are in our new apartment, long-standing thread of grievances that got us there. It's incredible weather outside right now. Like, it should not be this warm or dry through October, but just like put aside that maybe Mother Nature is deeply ill for a moment. It's like quite nice to just be 70 degrees and sunny all day and then like 50 and cool at night. The ultimate sleeping weather. So I've just been windows open every night to sleep because it's just the air is crisp. It's cool. It's just like beautiful, perfect sleeping temperature. And all day on my street in this new apartment, it's quiet. It's just like I live 3 blocks south of where I am now, and it was so much noisier. And now it's so quiet all day. But the moment like 10 o'clock hits when I'm climbing into bed, it just turns into complete ruckus. And like weird kind of, there's a main street near us and they're just drag racing all the time. Like these cars are just ripping, just drag racing. So at like 2 a.m. every night, I'm in my nice little cozy sleep, enjoying the cool fall. And I just wake up to these cars racing 2 blocks away, just rip. It sounds like they're just doing donuts like dirt bikes, cars, quads, ATVs, like the Philly 4-wheeler crews just ripping around. Then in the middle of the night, I would say 80% of the nights that we've had our trash out since I've gotten there, trash or recycling out, I've woken up to somebody just rooting around in our trash, and recycling, which is like right outside. And it's just like, some rando street people, whatever, but they come down our block and they just go through everybody's recycling. And so it's like very quietly, it just gets louder and louder and louder until they get directly to our house underneath our window and then go through our stuff. And then it gets quieter and quieter. And so it's like this 20-minute just sitting there, hearing it coming, not being able to fall back asleep. Then it gets really loud. It's right there. And then this thing that I just discovered is that there's this very fun looking gym directly across the street from us. It's like it looks like a squat. They're all doing heavyweight type gym, like bar exercises, whatever, rack exercises. But there's some morning workout that they do that starts at like 4:30, 5 a.m.
Oh no.
Where the first thing they do is they all start running warm-up laps. So it's just like this, like them,
Right
just
outside
like
the
these
window.
feet pattering, marching around the block. And it's the same thing as recycling. They come, they disappear, they do a lap around the block, come back, and they do like 10 laps every morning. So my grievance is that I'm living through the best sleeping weather of all time, and I can't do anything about it because I'm stuck in this bizarro world where things get weird after dark where I am.
That's awful.
So that's it.
Man, I love sleeping with the windows open. It's the way to do it if you can do it. And I remember living in an apartment in Chicago where the window of the floor above us, so not ours, thankfully, but very, very close by, open to the train line. So that is sort of a similar idea of it's quiet. It's just enough quiet for you to be able to. I'm so nervous right now. I feel like I can't finish my thought because of what I saw you type in the chat. So I'm just going to stop talking. I'm trying to commiserate with you, but.
All right. I don't know what's going on. Our production team's falling apart over here. All right. Last thing I just want to say once again, we're going to be streaming live Tuesday night on election night as results start coming in. So subscribe to the channel, set up notifications, make sure you're notified. And we'll see you guys there. Before we leave the stream, you're going to see me do the thing that I do at the end of every podcast, which is that I do the introduction for the podcast at the very end. I'm going to do it right here live on the stream. And then John's going to play our sweet music, and then I'm going to end the stream. All right? John, nod your head so I know you know what's going on. Thumbs up from John. Will's nodding his head, even though he's not involved or has anything to do with any of this.
He has to be on his toes, apparently.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, this was fun.
And we'll see you on election night. Peace.
See ya.
And then every time we do this, we stop, and then I go, I get a little glass of water, and then I look back at what we did. Then I say, coming up, happy Halloween. What are we doing? We talk Michigan. Are we in a red bubble? Positive signs for both campaigns. We bring in Will K back. We bring in John Law. The whole crew is here. We're hanging out. We've got some West Wing games. And can I name the states that are least accurate at predicting the president? It turns out I'm not very good at any of the games. And then some real-time live questions from the audience. You guys are going to enjoy this one. We did it. All right. Be well.